Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Drew, and if you're new here, I post a lot of reading, writing, book content, so if that's something you would enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, so sorry about my messy bed in the background. I have to change it and get rid of the Christmas for New Year. But anyways, happy New Year's Eve. I can't believe one day left of 2023. Yeah, so today I am going to be showing you every single book that I read or listened to in 2023. And it's a lot. So I read 65 books, and I feel like that's the most that I have read in a year in a long time. Maybe even the first time. I don't know. But my cat is going to be with us today. And so let's just get started. Okay, so I'm just going to be grabbing books off of these three stacks. I have like 3 piles of books. They're pretty tall. But I'm just going to be going one by one telling you the book. I'm not going to really be describing it because I feel like that would take too long. But I'm just going to be showing you the books, telling you which ones are my favorite, which ones I don't really like a lot, so that you have some idea of like which ones to look for. First book I read in 2023, New Year, January, is Out of My Mind. And this was, I think, this is like more of a younger read, but it was very interesting. I think it was pretty good. Next, we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I love this book so much. I give it 5 stars. Definitely recommend you read it if you haven't already. Next book we have is called Girl Online, and when I like got this at the thrift store, and when I read it, I didn't know it was like by a YouTuber, which I think is very interesting. I think it was pretty good. Like, it was a really quick little easy read. I don't know if I would read it again or recommend it though. Next, we have The Locked Door, and I think this was only like my second Freida McFadden book that I read, so I rated it super high. I feel like if I were to read it again, I don't know if I would have rated it so high. I don't really even remember what happens in this book, but I mean, it's good if you want like a fast-paced thriller. Next, we have the first Agatha Christie book that I ever read. This is The Body in the Library. And it was really hard for me to get into this book. I think it turned out to be really good, really complicated though. And it's not my favorite of hers, but I still liked it. Next, we have the second book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. We have Good Girl, Bad Blood. And I love this book so much. I love the series. I'm so happy I finally finished the series this year. Next, we have my first Colleen Hoover book, and probably my last, honestly. It Ends With Us. When I read it, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was just like romance books. I mean, she does write romance books, but I thought it was like not gonna be as dark and like, I guess, deep as it was. I don't know how I feel about this. I think a lot of people either love it or hate it. I think I'm just in the middle. Like I did enjoy reading it, just because it was very interesting, and like I had never read her books before, so I kind of want to see like what they were like. But I don't think I would read this again, or I don't think I'm gonna read another one of her books again unless, you know, she would come out with like a new one that maybe I was interested in. I don't know. Next, we have It's Not Summer Without You, and this is part of the Summer I Turned Pretty series. This book was good. I liked it. I definitely liked the whole series. I like the To All the Boys I Loved Before series better, by the same author, but I do like the series. So after I read this, I also finished the series and read We'll Always Have Summer. And yeah, these are just good summer reads. I'll probably read them again next summer. Okay, the next book I don't own, but I'll put on the screen. I think I borrowed this from the library, and it's called This Is My Brain in Love. And I really liked it. It was like the first book that I read where the characters had like depression and anxiety, and I think the author really wrote good characters. Had it, like, I feel like it was very well written and very well researched, and it was pretty good. Like, they definitely did good. Next, this book is more of like a women's fiction book, and this is called Calling Invisible Women. I really liked it. I think it was definitely very interesting. It had like a magical element, which was cool, which I didn't expect, so I like this one. Next, we have my favorite romance book ever. This is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read this again in like a year and just revisit Nora and the world, because I just love this book so much. I especially like how it's centered around books. I always like books that talk about books or writing or libraries in them. I think they're just so fun, and like that's like my hobby. So like when a book has your hobby in it, I feel like it's just so much more enjoyable to read. And then my hobby is books, so like it's books in a book. It's just perfect. But yeah, also this book, I had never thought about like a career in like the book industry or like publishing or marketing or editing or whatever. And after I read this, I was like, maybe I want to go into that. And so like I'm thinking about that because of this book and because of Nora. So next, I finished the Good Girls Guide to Murder series with As Good as Dead. And I think this book, I don't know, I feel like I love the first two, and then this one, I feel like it's just complicated on another level. And like Holly Jackson is such a mastermind for thinking up this whole thing and like the whole mystery and murder and everything. And I just think this book is on a whole nother level. Okay, the next book I read, I also got from the library, or I might have just already gotten rid of it. It was just Super Scary Stories for Sleepovers, one of those books. Those were just, I just wanted to read it. It was pretty fun to just read a little book like that, have some spooky stories. They weren't too scary, but it was also fun to read. Okay, next we have Light Lark, and this was one of the first fantasy books that I read in 2023, I think. And I do like some fantasy books, like mostly I don't, but it has to be like a very specific fantasy book, definitely with a female main character. Like that is a must, or else I don't really want to read it. I have no interest. But this one was super good. Next book I read was 5 stars, and that is I'm Glad My Mom Died. And I love this book so much. I read it on audiobook, so I'll just put a picture here. But I definitely want to get the hard copy of the book. Can you fit? No, it's... You're too fat, Mandy. So I definitely want to own it so I can read it again. Next book I read is You're So Dead. And this is a book that I had started a long time ago. And then I got too scared to finish it because I was like young. And then I finally bought the book this year and then finished it. And it wasn't the best. Like I feel like maybe if I had read it when I was scared of it like a long time ago, maybe it would have been really good because I was like scared. I like didn't want to continue, but then I did. Now I feel like it just wasn't good at all. And there are so many better thriller mystery books out there. Okay, the next book I read is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. And I really like this book. I have talked about it in other videos, especially the video I just made and posted yesterday, which was like my 5-star reads of 2023. Okay. My cat is bathing right there, so but I really like this book. I love Holly Jackson, so. And then the next book I don't have, but I read, is A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but after I read that book, I was like, I don't really need to continue the series. Like, that was a really long book. I listened to it on audiobook because I was like, I'm not reading that, especially if I don't like it. It's thick, though. Like, if you've seen it, it's thick. And the other ones in the series are even thicker. But I just feel like, yeah, it was a good first book, but I don't need to continue the series. I'm not that into fantasy or fairies like that. And I think the writing is really well done, but I just am not interested in the plot. Okay, next we have The Surrogate Mother by Frida McFadden. This one, I can't even remember. I have to like think about what happened. This one I feel like was okay. I think The Housemaid though, and The Housemaid Secret, which I haven't read yet. I think that like little duology is the best book she's written. I guess it's popular for a reason. But The Housemaid, I think it's just the best one that she's written that I've read so far. This one, it was okay. Okay, and then the last book in this first pile was Perfect, and I'm sad to say, but this book was not perfect. I think I had a lot of expectation going into this because it was like secret society heist in the Swiss Alps. She's like trying to steal these jewels from the queen or something like that, or steal them back. I won't spoil it, but I think it was just like, oh, like it started out really good and then it just got kind of boring for me. I think I've read other heist books that are way better, but I am glad that I gave this a try. Okay, next book is The Cabin. And this one was recommended to me by a friend, and she was like, you have to read this. This is like a crazy book. And I had never heard of this author. I guess she started on like Wattpad, but then she has now like published her books. But Yeah, I am almost wish that I didn't read this because of how crazy some of the parts were. Like I did not need to read that. I did not need to know about that. No. I think the mystery part was okay. It's called The Cabin, but they're only in the cabin for like 2 chapters in the beginning, and they only go back once, so I think it could have been called something else. I guess it was like what happened at the cabin, but like, anyways, that's my honest opinion about that book. I don't think I'm gonna read another book by her just in case it's like The Cabin and I don't want to read it. So, but I mean, no hate if you love her books and if you love The Cabin. Okay, next book I read was Luckiest Girl Alive, and oh my gosh, this book was so good. It wasn't like at all what I was expecting, but it was so good. It was so like heart-wrenching and like, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't happen to anyone in real life. I mean, I know it does, but like, I don't want it to because that was crazy, but I think it was so good. Like, yeah, I want to own it. I want to get it. Right now I don't have it. Okay, next from this pile is Along Came a Spider, and this is a James Patterson book. Pretty long. I liked it though. I feel like it wasn't as suspenseful as some of those thriller books are, but like, I'm not reading for that. Like, I'm reading for like a very realistic detective true crime story, and this is definitely it. Next is Nancy Drew book, The Secret in the Old Attic. I know this is like one of the most popular ones. I feel like the first book and then this book, this is like 21, are like often talked about and associated with Nancy Drew, but I had just never read it. And I had read like all the other ones except for this one. So I read this one in April, May, June, around that time. Okay, next is another Nancy Drew book. This is The Mystery of the Toiling Bell. And I can't really remember this one. I remember some parts. This wasn't one of my favorite Nancy Drews, but it's still good. Next, I started the Heartstopper series. This is book 1. And then throughout this video, you'll see I read the other 3 books of this. Next, we have an Emily Henry book. This is People We Meet on Vacation. And I love this book. I liked how it went back to like the current time and then like the past. I could not put it down. I think I read this while I was on vacation too. So this was like June or July when I read this, and it was just perfect because I was on vacation, they were on vacation. Yeah, this was so good. I can't wait to read another Emily Henry book, probably in the spring and summer. I don't think I want to read them during the winter. I feel like they're more spring and summer books. Next, we have The Deep, and this is like a mermaid historical fiction fantasy book, and it was pretty short too, but I listened to it on audiobook, and then recently I bought this book because I loved it so much. I wanted to own it. And this book is so good. It's so like, it's like not anything that I've read before, and I love that, and I definitely recommend if you love mermaids. Next is another like ocean book, I guess. This is called Adrift, and I've talked about this before, but I've read this like 5 times now. It's so good. It like takes me a couple days to recover from it because I don't even know why. It's just crazy what happens. Okay, next we have Heartstopper 2 and 3, and 4. So these are the rest of the series. I think there's another one coming out. I don't know if I'll want to buy that one though. Okay, the next book I read is Below Zero, and I read this like on my phone. And I like this. This was like a cute little romance book. This was the first Ali Hazelwood book I read. So I do want to read some more of her books, like Love Theoretically. I can't think of the other ones, but you know what I'm talking about. The next book I read is The Night Swim. And this is actually the first of 2 books. So I definitely want to get to the second book. I do own it. I got it from the book of the month again. But yeah, this is a good book. I really liked it. Like, it was like a podcast, a mystery. Next is Fractured Tide, 5 stars. I've read this 5 times. I love it. You should read it. Next is a book that I feel like is so crazy that people either hate it or love it, but I love it. This is The Spanish Love Deception, and then there's also a second book that I have to get to, but I own. I love this book. It was definitely worth all of these pages. Like, this is one of my favorite romance books. This is more of a like young reader book, but I still want to read it because it's about mermaids. And I had actually read this series like a really long time ago when I was younger and I was like into mermaids. And this is The Tale of Emily Winsnap, and it's just like this little girl who becomes a mermaid, and it's really cute. I want to read the whole series. This is Still Waters, and this is like a very old book, but I loved it. I was so surprised when I picked it up and read it that like it was good, but I just love this book so much. It's like a little mystery, you know, not too high stakes or anything, but it's just like so sweet and so cozy, and I just loved it so much. Okay, last book of this other stack is Want to Know a Secret by Freida McFadden. I think I have one more of her books that's on my shelf that I want to read. It's Suicide Med. I don't know if you've heard of it, but this is another Freida McFadden book. This one I feel like was worse than the other ones. I don't know. I feel like I really like her books, or I did really like her books like in the beginning when I was getting into them. Now I feel like they're just the same thing every time and they're kind of repeated. Like it's like a certain method and like outline that she writes her books in. Like they're all different stories and different settings and characters, but there's like always like a certain structure that all the books stick to. And I feel like that's just getting really repetitive. So I probably won't read another one after I finish the other one that I have. I probably won't buy another one, except for The Housemaid's Secret, because I really want to see how that ends. Okay, next I read these for like my 24-hour reading challenge, and I borrowed them from my boyfriend, but they're Spy Family, books 1, 2, and 3, and I really liked it. I was so surprised because I had never read a book like this before, but they're like little graphic novel manga books. I don't really know what they are, but they were good. Next on the last stack is We Were Liars, and this is the second time I read this book. I rated it lower than I did the first time. I think like I didn't understand it the first time, and I was like, wow, it's so good. Like, I don't even understand it. It's like, but this time, I don't know. I understand it more. I like the idea of it. I think it was just a little boring this time. Maybe because I already knew what was going to happen, but it was like 3 stars. Next is a little novella, and this is Killjoy. This I loved because it is just more like info on Pip from A Greek Girl's Guide to Murder and just like more into the universe, which I want more. So next is my favorite book of all time, and this is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I don't even know like what it is about this book, and I've talked about it before in my last video, but I just love it so much and I just want to read it again. I want to read this author's other books too, because I know there's more. And yeah, I want to get like the really pretty like hardback and special edition books too, like the illustrated one, because this is like just like the normal book. Okay, next I have And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and I like this book so much. I think it's one of my favorite so far of Agatha Christie's books. I haven't read all of them. I've read one more, but this one is my favorite out of the ones that I've read. Next we have the first Shatter Me book, and I can't believe I haven't started the series before, like sooner, but this book is so good. I can't wait to read the rest, hopefully, in 2024. I love this book so much. I can't wait to see where the story goes. I know so many people are huge fans. Next, we have Uncommon Criminals, and this is the second book of the High Society series, and it wasn't as good as the first one. The first one I've read like 10 times, well, like more like 5, but I love that book so much. But the second book, like I barely even remember it because I feel like it wasn't as good, and it was just like a disappointment. Next, we have Tana French In the Woods. I know I've talked about this so much. This is so good. 5 stars. Still not my favorite one of hers, but I really liked it. Next, I read I Am Malala, and I really like this book. I flew through it too. Like I kept reading. Some of the parts about like history was kind of boring, but I really liked learning about her life. Then I borrowed The Maze Runner, so I don't own it, but I read that book. It was better than I thought. It was very different than I thought, and there's more in the series, and it left on like a cliffhanger. So I feel like I have to read it, but like I also don't. I feel like I can just let the story stay where it is. Next, we have one of my new favorite books, Starling House. And oh my gosh, this book is so good. I love it so much. It was like one of my first gothic fantasy books, and I just loved it so much. It was from Book of the Month too. Next we have Guts, and this is just like a little graphic novel. So fun, so easy to read in one day. That's all I have to say about this. Next, we have the other Agatha Christie book that I read this year. This is called Halloween Party, and I read this like after Halloween, or maybe it was before, I don't remember, but definitely not my favorite, but it was still really good. And then I read The Inheritance Games, and this is the first book of the series. I have the second, so hopefully soon, within the month of January, I can read that book. But I love this so much. I know so many people are fans, and I can't wait to see how the story ends. Next, we have another Nancy Drew book. This is called The Twin Dilemma, and this is one of my favorites. I definitely wanted to read it because of twins, and it sounded very interesting. Then I read another little novella by Ali Hazelwood. This was Stuck With You, and I think Below Zero was my favorite out of these two. I can't wait to read the third little novella story, but that one wasn't my favorite. Next, we have 3 more Nancy Drew books. We have The Greek Symbol Mystery, Secret in the Old Lace, and The Glowing Eye Mystery. And these are just more Nancy Drew books that I read in 2023. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the books. And then I read this one after Halloween, but like it was still kind of fall when I read this. This is The Ex-Hex. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but the best friend was so annoying. I did not like the best friend in this. I did not like her. Or her cousin. It's like her cousin, but it's also like her best friend. I did not like her. I did like the story, but there was just some annoying parts in the book for me. But I feel like it wasn't meant to be super deep. It was just like a little rom-com. And now we're on to the month of December. These are the books that I just read. This is Love Light Farms, and this was the only holiday book that I read this season. But I think it was like the best one that I could have picked. I loved it so much. Yeah, I feel like there's some parts where that's why I didn't really like. That's why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. But I really like this book. It definitely got me into the holiday spirit, and it was so fun to read it. Next, we have a 5-star read. This is 14 Ways to Die. I literally read this in 2 days. I loved it so much. This is just like catching a serial killer. If you're into that, I definitely recommend reading this because there's like short chapters. It's so easy to just binge in like one sitting. And last but not least, the last book that I finished, I think Friday or Saturday. No, it was Friday. Last book I finished the 28th was Belladonna, and I really like this book. I was gonna give it 4 or 5 stars, and then something happened. There was like this one thing in the book that I didn't want to give it 5 stars because I didn't really like it. And then it turned out to be crazy. There's like a crazy plot twist at the end. But it wasn't like the main plot twist, but it was like a little tiny one. And I love that. So I was like, okay, this book is pretty good. And then it ends on a cliffhanger. So I gave this 4 stars. I really liked it though. And I am excited to read the second book, Foxglove. But I really like this book. I'm glad it was the last one that I read in 2023 because it was really good. It's not at all what I expected it either to be. Okay, so those are all the books I read in 2023. I hope you enjoyed watching. I think the next video that I might post or make is like books that I want to prioritize and get to in 2024, and books that I haven't read but have been like wanting to forever. I can't wait to pick and choose what those books will be. I think I definitely read a lot this year. So like just looking at it, it is a lot. And I can't wait to attempt to read 70 books. My goal for this year was 50. I think I'm going to try 70 because I did hit 65 this year. So that's just only 5 more books. I think I can do it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope to post so many more videos in the new year. And Happy New Year's Eve. Bye.